Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, matters of the heart, music, and whatever else occurs to me, but it'll be mostly Vedic astrology. The the major thing to keep in mind. Oh, by the way, if you like the channel or if you like this video, constructive criticism is always welcome, by the way. But if you like the channel and you like the video, please share it with your friends. We do need to increase the membership if we're going to hit a critical 1,000 mark. And also, um, and again, this is, I have, um, I have no dreams of being a YouTube millionaire. Um, I don't think in those terms, but I really do want to reach a wider audience because I want to sort of like uh, tamp and tone down a lot of the fear and a lot of the anxiety that people feel sometimes in upcoming events. I want to legitimately warn you about dangerous transits so you can affect your behavior accordingly and avoid unpleasantness and also take advantage of opportunities. So we'll be talking more about remedies to both charts and actions you can take intentionally, which will avoid mishaps. But the main point here is really to keep you informed of what's happening astrologically, give you the best information I possibly can. I'm working with Lolita Donatella Rubeck on a partnership to help you with these things as well. And hopefully through our combined knowledge, we can assist you and make the world a better, saner, more prosperous, or more spiritual world for you. It depends on what you're aiming for in life. If you want to attain enlightenment, then we'll see if we can give you directions as to how to do that. Not by being your teachers ourselves, but by strengthening certain things in your chart and by maybe guiding you to the best places or the best options for what you want to do with your life. If you want to become rich, we'll try to recommend or optimize locations and also activities you can do to increase that. If you want to get married or be within a relationship, uh, we'll talk about that, and I'll talk about that independently of Lolita as well. So there are certain combinations, certain times in which it's better to do certain things than other times, and that's a science called muhurta in Vedic astrology. It's called electional astrology in Western astrology, and so essentially you elect the time and you choose a time to start an activity that's best when the planets uh, are best placed to help you out. So I'm going to switch over to another chart. We're going to go. Let me just see if I can get out of this one. Hold on a second. So I have to change this chart. Sorry. No chart. So we're changing to a now chart. It's currently 8:57. So subscribe, share. Helpful comments are always welcome. And feedback. I try to get to the inquiries. I have noticed membership going up, which I'm really happy about. But I also want to make sure that we're giving the best possible information that we can on this particular YouTube video for you. So it's been kind of an interesting day. We have interesting. We have as I'm talking with you right now, it's just before, it's a few days before um, the new moon solar eclipse. Now that eclipse will occur in the sign Taurus over here. So this is Pisces, that's Aries, that's Taurus, that's Gemini, that's Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and back to our old friend Pisces. So we have, so the moon's in Aries, so everybody's got a little bit more energy than normal, even though the moon is weak. It's right next to the sun. And interestingly enough, right now, Mars is at its weakest position, or close to its weakest position in the sky. It'll be at its weakest position at about 28 degrees of Cancer, but it's heading towards its fall, what they call its debilitation or its Nietzsche position in Indian astrology. It's the way these charts work. The start of a Nietzsche is not as damaging as the end of a Nietzsche, and I'll tell you why. Essentially, unless you're right at the Nietzsche degree, which is really important. So different planets have different fallen degrees. Mars in this chart is in Cancer, so we're becoming a little bit more emotional about things, a little bit more expressive of our emotions, which is fine. You know, it's not really, but it also makes us a little bit more short-tempered. So just be aware of that. Especially when you're dealing with people, there's a tendency, and it started last week right before Mars went in its fall to in this particular sign, and you probably noticed yourself getting a little bit more anxious or a little bit more aggravated lately. And oddly enough, that doesn't happen when Mars is exalted. When Mars is exalted, everybody's strategically thinking, they're impatient, but they're not bossy, they're not aggravated. Mars in Cancer is in an emotional sign, and our mind changes a great deal. So we're quick to judgment on people, quick to respond, quick to take offense. A lot of people who are professional athletes actually have Mars in the sign, and what that means essentially is they compensate, they overcompensate for weak Mars. So, and they'll become more competitive or more aggressive or more extroverted, you know. So Mars becomes a little, so they need to get those emotions out and expressed. And but one of the things that's happening right now is Mars is what's called Vargotama. That is, it's in the same division in both charts. It's in the same sign. That, from my experience, it doesn't take the debilitation away, but it does tend to make it, it tends to exaggerate it. So we're not going to feel like victims right now. We're going to feel much more the need to take control, the need to push ourselves, the need to get things done, which is actually a good thing. Also, and this is also one of the more interesting aspects of fallen planets and cancellation of fallen planets. The moon is in Mars sign. You see right there, that's Aries. So the moon is in Mars sign. Mars is in Cancer, so Mars is in the moon sign. So that's what's called a parivartana yoga, or a mutual exchange that cancels the debilitation to a certain extent. So essentially what that means in plain English is, yeah, you're going to be emotional and moody, but you'll get over it more quickly. And I think one of the things about this upcoming eclipse is going to be much more. So the lunar eclipse last week was very aggravating, very forceful. It caused a lot of people to at least I've observed, to cause a lot of people to be very suspicious of other people, and to not trust them, to go on the offensive a lot. This one will increase that, but it'll make them less, it'll make them attack and ask questions later. So in this one, there was a danger of subversion by other people. In this one, there's a danger of outright attack. So you have to be careful in dealing with people over the next few days. That's just a word of advice. You don't have to take my advice, but I'm just telling you, because more people will not be, myself included, will not be as rational or as patient as they normally are. So Mars is a very important planet for my chart. It may not be as important for your chart, but it's a really extremely important planet for my chart. So that's advice that I'm saving for myself. Now, on the positives, so again, you can use this energy constructively. So let's say if you want to get something done and you're impatient with yourself about not getting things done or not starting things, this is a great time to actually start projects, even with Mercury retrograde, because any work you put on these projects will actually start to take root. You'll actually start to build an emotional core for what you want to do. So even though Mercury is retrograde and it's not really a good time to sign contracts or sign agreements, it's okay to start jobs when you sign the contract before Mercury went retrograde. It's actually a good time, like I said, to get bargains on things. It's a good time to approach people, but communications will be very, very misdirected and misunderstood. So you have to prepare yourself for that. That's the one among many letters I have problems with. But the Sun Rahu conjunction, and I woke up around 3:30 this morning, just out of the blue, no real reason for it, that this Sun Rahu conjunction can lead to a little bit of sleeplessness, a little bit of excessive energy over the next few days, a little bit of anxiety. So just be aware of that. And the Mercury Rahu conjunction will tend to do that as well. This will tend to be a little bit difficult for sleep. Saturn is aspecting Mars. That'll make us become like overly touchy or overly perfectionistic about what we say and how we express ourselves. Since now there is a positive to Mars being in Cancer, and I'll tell you what it is what's called the Raj Yoga Karaka planet for this rising sign. So what does that mean in plain English? Well, certain planets, by virtue of the houses they rule, so Mars rules the 5th house of past life credit and also luck. So these are things that you achieve without working very hard for them. And the 10th house, which is a house of work, are ruled by Mars in this chart. So Mars being in the 1st house means those things will come full and center. So you may get some unexpected benefits from communications, or even new communications from people you've known in the past, and who will actually step forward and give you some breaks. Intuition is very strong with this placement, but again, like I said, there's a tendency to get upset a little too quickly. That'll last for about 2 months, unfortunately. And so there'll be a tendency to get a little bit upset too quickly. But work life will benefit, and also self-esteem will benefit quite a bit when the sun moves into Gemini, which will be in about 10 days. The other thing is, and communications will benefit. The other thing is, from the chart, Jupiter's in the 8th house in this particular chart that I'm pulling up right now, and Saturn's in the 7th house. So this will, in terms of relationship life, this will make people feel a little bit constrained or a little bit impaired in their relationship life, especially if they have planets in Cancer or Capricorn. And if we go into the analysis of this chart a little bit more deeply, I mean, we're going to do the eclipse chart in a few minutes. The other thing to keep in mind is that as these particular planets work, there'll be a lot of redoing of old projects. So Mercury retrograde and Saturn retrograde, you'll be revisiting a lot of old territory. A lot of it won't be pleasant, but a lot of it will be okay. And on the positive side, Jupiter aspects Venus, so over the overall luck, especially for the air signs like Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra, will tend to be fantastic. Certain other signs will benefit as well, depending on the area of life that this affects, but those signs in particular will do very well. Aries will do well, and Leo will do well, and so to a certain extent will Sagittarius, Capricorn. So there are a lot of signs that will benefit from this combination. Other signs will not benefit quite so much, but as the moon goes over these signs, which you'll feel right after the eclipse, you'll see a lot of positive changes coming. The other thing is, if people have been wanting to make changes or make a move, I wouldn't do it when Mercury's retrograde, but I would do it after Mercury turns retrograde, which will be turns direct, excuse me, which will be around the third week of June. Now, something also, Rahu is what's called stationary direct in the chart. So I use the true nose, which allows you to see that. And basically, this is a relatively rare phenomenon. Usually big events happen when these nodes. So there'll be big governmental events happening across the world. There'll be government scandals. There'll be military attacks, but I don't think they'll be as bad as a lot of people are predicting. And there'll also be foreign and intrigue. Now, we've already seen a lot of activity around ransomware attacks, right? So this is one of the things that Mercury retrograde in conjunction with Rahu gives. So we saw it, the oil industry, the meat industry. There was some, I don't know how far it extends. There were some attacks on in Massachusetts on the Steamship Authority, which is essentially responsible for seafaring commuters between Martha's Vineyard and Massachusetts, and also around the Boston area. So that isn't a big deal, you know, in terms of the world, but it is a big deal in terms of Massachusetts tourism industry. So you'll see a lot of things like that going on. And one of the other things that I've noticed as well is the press has been doing a lot of corrections in terms of the coverage that they've provided during the Trump administration. I don't think, I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it. Now that the imminent threat is over, it's easier to say, oops, that story wasn't exactly right, or that story wasn't that story wasn't exactly as we reported it. And it's not even that I'm an advocate for Donald Trump. That's not what concerned me. What concerned me was, so there were definite problems with his administration. I mean, I'm not But what concerned me is that if the media takes a dislike to somebody, it doesn't matter if it's a person who's on the left or on the right. If the media takes a dislike to an individual, they can twist the news and misreport the news, and or just choose not to cover something, and there are no consequences for them. So, and a lot of media coverage is actually protected by First Amendment freedom of speech, especially if it's an opinion piece. So let's say you have a correspondent who's a conservative, a correspondent who's a liberal, or who's a Democrat or a Republican, whatever party they belong to, and they're protected if they have it under the appearance of opinion. It's our opinion that they said this. So that's definitely covered. There have been an increasing number of cases which have come out in which opinion was not the meat of the article, and so there'll be more and more of that coming out. And as I said before, on both sides, because both sides have been playing this particular game for a long time now. And if you don't think, and I think you're living not in this world if you think this is the first time this has happened. It isn't. So it's, so it depends on, it really depends on who's in office. All right, so that Venus in Gemini, very good for establishing new social relationships. People tend to be very forgiving, but again, it's going to be a shiftable emotional month or 2 months. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now we're going to go to the eclipse, and I'm going to try to get the exact eclipse time for you folks. But let me look at the chart for what's going on right now, just quickly. I was in a smoky environment for most of yesterday, so my voice is going in and out a little bit. So, all right, so Mars is going right to Washington or close to Washington D.C. Oh my word. Okay, so we have a Mars line going through here. We have a Mars line going through Brazil, which is not so great, right through the middle of Brazil. And we also have a moon line going through Brazil. So Brazil's a little bit protected. So there'll be some disruptions with government and people. But I think Brazil's actually headed towards a turnaround, just given where Mars is located and where the Venus line is located. But there's this very strong Mars line that's running through, basically through Michigan all the way down into, it looks like North Carolina, and really close, and Virginia, and really close to DC. This is DC's location. So that means we're going to have like some really heated arguments over the next few months, even more heated than we've seen. Some very emotional arguments. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of protesting or even rioting this summertime. So that's not good. The other thing is, and a lot of confrontations, unfortunately. It hits up here in northern Canada, right next to Alaska, but it really won't substantially affect Alaska. We have a sun line and a Rahu line going through California. So the eclipse is going to hit California kind of hard. And that could produce some more earthquakes or some more earth tremors or some panic in California. And Mercury is going through this line as well. So I think you're going to see some miscommunications happening from Western United States and from Western Mexico. And we have a Rahu line going through southern Argentina. So Argentina has been having some problems lately, but there is a Venus line running through there. So there should be some reconciliation in Argentina. As we move from the west to the east, there's a Rahu and Jupiter line kind of like right by the Azores. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not the Azores. That's the is it the Azores? I think it is. And also, no, it isn't. The Azores are over here. But right by the islands off the coast of Africa, I should know these. I think they're the Canary Islands. But basically over here, we have a sun line, so there'll be some government rebellions in, and also Iceland looks like it's in some more danger as well with that Sun Rahu line, like some panic over maybe volcanoes. Mercury is going through Ireland and Portugal, so those parts of the world will have major communication flaws, major panics, I would say, connected with disease. Venus, though, is going right through France and through North Africa, through Central, so they should have a relatively peaceful time of it, very romantic. Mars is going through Western Turkey, so there should be some caution about earthquakes or armed attacks over the next week. But it will be a time when people can express their feelings. They should be a little bit alert that the environment's a little bit unstable. This is more around Ankara, though, than around Istanbul. So I think Istanbul, although there's a large earthquake line over here in northern Turkey, which I'm very aware of, I don't think it'll be an earthquake. I think it'll be governmental violence happening over here. And also, as we move over to, and also in Egypt, through the Sudan and down all the way through Central Africa. The Eastern Africa, excuse me. I'm looking at that carefully. That's a Mercury line going up through the Mercury and a Saturn line going up through roughly Russia, roughly where Moscow is. And the Mars lines, keep in mind, Eastern Europe has had a lot of earthquakes lately. I think they're going to have, unfortunately, they're going to have some more or some domestic violence. The other part of the world that I would look at right now is we have a Rahu line going over India and China, and Sun, Mercury, Venus lines going through Asia, Southeast Asia. And let me move my face out of the way. And Venus lines are moving over Vietnam, China. So China will be financially in better shape. And over now, essentially United States. I want to go back to central United States. Central United States, especially from Montana down through Texas, is going to be fine. They're going to be in good shape. So I don't want to have all doom and gloom on the United States. Mercury line is running through Saudi Arabia, parts of Syria, close to Turkey, close to Iraq. And I think those actually indicate some kind of, like I said, violence, possibly earthquakes. In Eastern Europe. I hope not. Those folks have gone through quite a lot lately. And we have a Rahu line going through, looks like Pakistan. So Pakistan could be prone to some kind of domestic panic or some kind of domestic issues. And lastly, we have a Mars line running through Japan. Now, again, I'm hoping this is something connected with either the government and it's not an earthquake. because it's going through the Philippines, it's going through Indonesia. Yeah, it's pretty much all through that part of the world. Australia has a Jupiter line and a moon line running through it, so those are relatively innocuous lines. Although the moon is weak, those are relatively innocuous lines, are relatively straightforward. And there will be some governmental scandal in New Zealand. Okay, so let's go back to the eclipse chart. Let's close this down. And see if we can pull up to the eclipse. All right, so let me stop the share, and I'm gonna share it again just to make sure we have a refreshed chart. So this is the actual eclipse day itself. We see the sun and the moon are exactly at 25 degrees, 37 minutes. And they're both in the lunar mansion of Murigashira. So Murigashira is a Mars-ruled lunar mansion, or it's Mars dominated. Let's put it that way, at least in Vimshotri Mahadasha. And it's about the act of flight or change, actually, to be honest. So it's at the end of Taurus, so there's going to be a change in material expectations for a lot of people. And maybe even some unpleasant realizations about economic stability. The other thing is, now this doesn't mean we're all going to be impoverished, but last week the job figures that came out in early May were disappointing. There are a couple of reasons for that, without pretending I'm an economist, but basically we've had shocks to the system in terms of the ransomware attacks. We've had shocks to the system in terms of increased cost of oil due to both the pipeline being closed down and the backup in the Suez Canal. And we've also had some, I would say rather, trying to think of a good way to put it, some inflationary pressure because of the house market being so strong, and the inventory of new houses being low, and also interest rates being low, which tends to drive up costs. And finally, we've had a lot of people not producing essential items for about a year and a half. So that'll cause some inflationary pressure. So so like I said, I'm not an economist, nor I pretend to be one. These are just like, pretty much what I would call common sense economic analyses. I don't know what the long-term effects of these will be. But Rahu is going retrograde again. You'll see it in about 3 days, or 3 to 4 days, excuse me. And it's passed out of that stationary position. And so you'll see more of the big events happen before the eclipse than after. After the eclipse, there will be a bit of a relief, to be truthful. And we still have most of the planets in the same position they were before, with the notable exception that the moon is in Taurus. Now, for those of you who are romantically inclined, this eclipse may give a very strong indication that you've found a romantic partner and that you're going to break through and conquer. The only drawback to that is wait a few weeks to see if it's genuine, because Mercury is retrograde. there's an exchange of Mars between Venus and Taurus, and between Gemini and Taurus, which I had mentioned in the previous analysis. So that makes us communicate a lot about love. But we also may be deluding ourselves a little bit sometimes, or people may be misrepresenting themselves to us about romantic intentions. So wait at least 3 weeks until Mercury goes direct, and it's sort of like ambles out of Taurus into Gemini, into its own sign, where you'll be able to see the truth of the situation. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't be bold and take chances romantically. That's not the idea. But before you start saying to yourself, this is my soulmate, this is my life partner, this is my destiny, be very careful about that, because things can flip backwards, especially after Mercury moves out of the company of Rahu. And so all the illusion which often accompanies love, I'm not putting it down, but all the fantasizing that often goes on about how wonderful life will be with this person, it's better to wait until Mercury and Venus are in the same sign or close to it to determine whether or not you want to stay with this person. Okay? So it always gives me pause when I see Rahu involved in it, with any relationship indicator planet. And Rahu is involving Venus and Mercury right now. And so it doesn't mean the relationship can't take place. A lot of our romantic aspirations are based upon what I would call our not realistic understandings of what the other person is like. It doesn't mean we're wrong. It just means that we're not seeing the real person, because we have this glaze of love over our eyes. Mars, again, very emotional eclipse. Be very careful what you say to people, because you'll trigger, if you don't say things exactly the right way, that Mars Saturn aspect, you'll trigger some resentment. Also, Mars is aspecting Jupiter. You'll see a lot of righteousness coming out over the eclipse period. And I think that's something. So Jupiter's aspecting Venus, so good feelings will abound, but also a lot of what I would call aggressive self-righteousness will be involved with this eclipse. And what I mean by that is essentially we're going to see, like, Mars will be in Cancer, which is a sign connected with nationalism to a very large extent. It's the home sign, okay? And so you'll see people ready to fight for their beliefs or their convictions or their home turf. And so, like I said, just be really careful this summertime. Be careful when having discussions about race or gender or anything like that, even money, even economic policy. It's just really, it's not going to be worth the emotional fallout. Trust me on that. The other thing is, and it can do some damage to you as well. I mean, that's, it can have like real world consequences. So people could lose their jobs. People could, if you offend somebody or say the wrong thing, you could lose your job. It's not worth it. So just maybe a vow of silence might be a good idea. But for those of us who have to speak, just be careful, just be mindful of what you're saying. Not a lot of chance to verbally relax, unfortunately, this summertime. The other thing is, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a good thing to keep our minds on our words. And let's look at the astro mapping relocate, and then we'll look at the Okay, so Jupiter's passing over. So it looks like there's going to be a lot of controversy over what's right and what's wrong. I would say, especially educationally, around the Midwest and the South. And we have a Venus line actually going through close to where I live, which is pretty nice for me, I guess. But that usually means some kind of financial success, some kind of maybe some romantic success for people who aren't married, you know. So you'll have a lot. And people who have a lot of Geminis will enjoy a lot of love. Not a lot of changes in terms of the other planets from the chart right now. Let me see if Turkey's clear of the eclipse. That's good, but South Italy is not, and and Northern Africa is not. So this will be so essentially Scandinavia all the way down through South Africa in a straight line going through Germany will be kind of a mess, kind of a panicky time. And that may have to do something to do with the virus. Jupiter's passing through France, so France looks like it's in pretty good shape. And Spain is having this very difficult line going through it. Spain and Portugal, excuse me. So they're going to experience some problems, some domestic problems. Mars is passing through Syria, so Venus is passing through Turkey. Venus should actually be in good shape. Turkey should actually be in good shape for this eclipse. And so a lot of emphasis on luxury and comfort on the film industry in Turkey. In the United States, the areas which are problematic are Arizona, New Mexico, and Mexico itself. And we do have a Rahu line going through Argentina. So that peacefulness I have projected for Argentina will probably continue, is only temporary, and will probably continue for about, and there'll probably be political strife for about another 6 months. Mars is passing through Syria. It's not a, I'm sorry, yes, through Syria. Or through, I'm sorry, through Iran, my apologies. And Saturn is passing through India, so Western India should get hit. Not necessarily by the eclipse, but there'll be tensions between India and China, but it'll be hit by some difficult weather conditions in Western India, right around here, around Bombay. Again, Indonesia looks like it has some problems. And so does Japan, so much what I just said about. And there'll be some earthquake damage or some panic in eastern China. Again, governmental strife in New Zealand does show up, oddly enough. New Zealand's a relatively placid country. It's not on the news so much. And again, we do have these kind of like violence or earthquake zones in California. So California has to watch out a little bit. So essentially not much change from today, except that certain countries like France and England do a little bit better. Eastern seaboard of the United States does a little bit better. Brazil does a lot better than it does right now. And it looks like China does a little bit worse from the eclipse, and I'll be for about another 3 to 6 months. And Saturn hits the east coast of Australia, so there'll be some economic issues down there. And Mars will hit the central part of the country, so again, we can expect some violence or some really bad weather there. But this is not a bad eclipse chart. It will bring some disruptions or some reorientations in terms of money. Money will become much more important to people. So I'm going to do a really quick analysis of the signs. Let me just see. Get it. All right. So Aries is doing well. It'll be a little bit obsessed with money, a little bit concerned or worried about money, but relationship-wise, it'll be extremely charming. Emotionally, though, a little bit volatile. And in terms of long-term relationships, there'll be arguments with long-term partners. But career-wise, it looks pretty good. That sign looks pretty good, so they'll have a lot of income opportunities. Taurus, more emphasis on fame, recognition. They'll be trying to promote themselves, and their beauty will be enhanced during this particular period. Their finances will be in better shape than they have been, but it'll be through relationship partners. And no real problems with children for Taurus, except for a little bit being a little bit greedy. K2's in the 7th house, so unusual or unexpected relationship partners show up for Taurus. And again, career and luck look pretty good for Taurus over the next few months. Gemini has a lot of good things coming in. It has the 5th house and the 12th house Lord, so there'll be some opportunity for romantic involvements. Like I said, just be careful not to commit to a person or not to get enthralled with a person. Mars is in the 2nd house. Their emotions will be very strong. They'll be very aggressive. Strong desire for money, but also good luck with money because yogi points in the 5th house. K2's in the 6th house will have to watch out for some stomach issues or some stomach problems. 7th house Lord is pretty good. It's in the 11th house, so there'll be gains of friends who can become relationship partners. Saturn's in the 8th, which is a little bit difficult, so they'll still have some long-term problems they'll have to deal with, but this is not a bad chart for Taurus. Career looks, for Gemini, career looks very good. Cancer has to be really careful not to get too upset this month. They'll have a lot of issues connected with children and work, but they'll be able to handle it. Also, some romantic involvements are indicated, although they could be hidden or secret. And the 2nd house Lord is in the 11th house, so that's good for, that's good for financial gains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. K2's in the 5th house. Some problems with children misbehaving but also some benefits. 7th house relationship life will seem like you're going back over and over the same old things again. Jupiter's in the 8th house, so unexpected gains for relationship partner, and career life looks really, really good for this particular planet. There'll be a lot of focus on career and focus on gains. Leo looks pretty good. You have Jupiter in the 7th house, Mars in the 12th. So again, this sign has to be a little bit careful about not grabbing the first relationship partner that comes along. They may have somebody who wants to take advantage of them. My advice for them would be to wait for about 2 months, and then they'll be in the driver's seat. Venus is in the 11th house. They'll have beautiful friends, though. They'll be accompanied by beautiful people. Yogi point is in the 3rd house, so they'll be desiring of money. K2 in the 4th house, they'll be restless, wanting to move. Saturn's in the 6th house. Again, some stomach issues come up. But Jupiter's in the 7th house. Good for relationship opportunities, really through September for this sign. And 8th house, no real changes there. 9th house Lord is Mars. Is in the 12th house. So you may have some disagreements or difficulties with bosses. Career life should actually be good. This sign should get a certain amount of fame. For Virgo's really strong this month. The Lord of Virgo is Mercury. It's in the 9th house, so it will have some problems reorienting itself. But career-wise, it'll do fantastic. Career-wise, everybody will be looking at this sign and saying, like, wow, what a nice person. K2's in the 3rd house. and that gives them a lot of courage this month. Saturn's in the 5th house, so this brings old flames back or old romantic partnerships back. Jupiter's in the 6th, and maybe some problems that are over-consuming, and some opposition from long-term relationship partners. But career looks really good. But career and overall, like, difficult to please bosses though, and some financial gains. Libra has a yogi point in the 1st house. Yay for Libra, so that's going to be good for money for this sign. K2 is in the 2nd house, so this particular chart is good for unexpected income flows. Saturn's in the 4th house, a lot of work connected with those income flows. Jupiter's in the 5th, a lot of luck, a lot of picking up of students, and also picking up of advanced luck. And 7th house Lord is in the 8th, so there's going to be some anxiety about relationship partners. 7th house Lord is in the 11th, so there'll be anxiety about relationships and uncertainty about income. 9th house Lord is very well placed, is in the 8th house, so that'll give increased income benefits from relationship partners, but also a certain amount of selfishness on their part. And 9th house Lord is, and the 9th house has Venus in it. That's going to give good luck career-wise. Mars is in the 10th house, that'll give some frustration or anger connected with career. For Scorpios placed in, Lord is placed in the 9th house, which is not a bad placement, although it's considered a difficult placement for this particular rising sign. But so it means a lot of work, a lot of emotional work to gain advancement. Again, not a lot of recognition. Saturn's in the 3rd house, a lot of courage, a lot of stamina connected with the sign. Jupiter's in the 4th house, so home life will be relatively pleasant. Excuse me. 5th house, no problems with kids. 6th house is fine. Problems with relationship life though, so a lot of miscommunications, a lot of bungled communications, but relationship partners will be bringing in more money. 9th house, some difficulties with bosses. Okay, so you'll have to be prepared for that. 10th house, and some unhappiness with career. 11th house, financial gains were mainly brought in by spouse. If we go to Sagittarius, Lord is in the 3rd house in Aquarius, so it'll give increased financial success. Saturn's in the 2nd house, it'll give financial stability. And Rahu is in 6th house, it gives some financial gains or benefits. 7th house has Venus in it, so this is a great month for Sagittarius to meet people, maybe socialize. Mars is in the 8th house, but again, be careful about picking up new relationship partners. 9th house Lord is strong, it's in the 6th house with Mercury and Moon, so this will give popularity to the sign. And the 10th house Lord is also in the 6th house, so that'll give a lot of work exposure. K2's in the 12th house, very good time for spiritual work for this sign. First, Capricorn has is Saturn's in its own sign in Capricorn, Jupiter's in the 2nd house, so this gives us Sashi Yoga, so the sign will be able to command people or push people around. Jupiter's in the 2nd house, good for money. Some difficulties with kids and with luck though, and some difficulties with romantic life. A lot of arguments in relationships. Sorry, Capricorns. But there'll also be a relationship partner will also be passionate and very forceful and will be willing to help. The best part about this is the 1st and 2nd house, because there's a lot of money coming into the sign, but it doesn't look like a peaceful month for this particular sign, or a peaceful week. For Aquarius, it's just a pretty good placement. Jupiter's in the first house, as Lord of the second and the 11th, so it's a money producing combination. And although there will be despair or discontent at home, that'll pass relatively quickly. You'll see that changing in about 3 weeks. And Venus is in the 5th house. Ooh, great for past relationship partners coming back, or even gains of relationship partners if you're single. And Mars is in the 6th house. Some difficulty with work life, though. Again, that shows up from this K2 as well, but it'll make the person a little bit angry with work life. They should be careful not to resist change. And last but not least, K2's in the 10th house, so not a lot of recognition in Jupiter and Saturn in the 12th house, a lot of expenses. Finally, Pisces. Pisces has the Lord in the 12th house, and that'll give a lot of financial expenses, a lot of courage. Relationship life actually looks promising, but again, wait for about 3 weeks before making any commitments, at least. Mars is in the 6th. That's a good placement. I'm sorry, Mars is in the 5th. That's not a good placement. That gives some problems with fulfillment of ambitions, and some problems with money, and also some problems with luck. So this sign has to be a little bit careful about not stretching goodwill too far. The good thing about the chart is Venus aspects the 10th house, so it'll open career opportunities. K2's in the 9th house. It'll give, I would say, some minor miscommunications with the boss, but overall, not a bad chart. And the main thing I think I would advise this sign to do is not to lose his temper, which I've said for everybody, but also try to watch expenses. That's it for this week. I hope I haven't run over, and I'm going to exit really quickly and say to you all namaste, and see you next week. Thank you very much for your time, and stay safe, stay healthy, and I wish you all the fulfillment of your desires. Om Kameshvara Namaha.